Soul Series podcast, and we are back with another episode with Supriya Chechi. And it's been a long time, but we're back again. Actually, I was supposed to start the recording, but we were already discussing something, and we are currently discussing the 12th verse of the ninth chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, where we are talking about a translation. And yeah, so please continue, Supriya Chechi.
Okay, thank you, Kanan. Happy to be back. We had a break for 2 weeks.
Hmm.
And now we are, like you said, we are back with the 12th verse. Jai Srila Prabhupada and Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
So here, those who are thus bewildered are attracted by demonic and atheistic views. How are they bewildered? Because the previous verse told us that they're bewildered since they take Krishna's form to be human and they have contempt for it. In that deluded condition, their hopes for liberation, their fruitive activities, and their culture of knowledge are all defeated. Because offense against the Lord is not taken lightly. So, therefore, their hope for liberation. They set Krishna aside because they think it is just he's come in a human form, it's not worth anything, but they still want liberation without taking Krishna's instructions or Krishna's the knowledge he gives, accepting in any way. Their fruitive activities, even when they try to accomplish something materially, and their culture of knowledge are all defeated, which means they may be jnanis, that is why they are looking for liberation. They may be karmis, doing karma yoga, that is their fruitive activities, and the culture of knowledge. Dhyana yoga, karma yoga, jnana yoga, whichever they may pursue, if deep down they have contempt for the form of the Lord which they mistake to be human, then it's all defeated. That's why these three adjectives, the type to go for liberation, the type who go for fruitive activity, those are the karma yogis. The culture of knowledge are defeated. Those who are going after gyan and trying to understand the ultimate through gyan. Please read the purport.
Yeah, so there are many devotees who assume themselves to be in Krishna consciousness and devotional service, but at heart do not accept the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna as the absolute truth. For them, the fruit of devotional service, going back to Godhead, will never be tasted. Similarly, those who are engaged in fruitive pious activities and who are ultimately hoping to be liberated from this material entanglement will never be successful either, because they deride the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. In other words, persons who mock Krishna are to be understood to be demonic and or atheistic. As described in the seventh chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, such demonic miscreants never surrender to Krishna. Therefore, their mental speculations to arrive at the absolute truth bring them to false conclusions that the ordinary living entity and Krishna are one and the same. With such a false conviction, they think that the body of any human being is now simply covered by material nature, and that as soon as one is liberated from this material body, there is no difference between God and himself. This attempt to become one with Krishna will be baffled because of delusion. Such atheistic and demoniac cultivation of spiritual knowledge is always futile. That is the indication of this verse. For such persons, cultivation of the knowledge in Vedic literature, like the Vedanta Sutras and Upanishads, is always baffled. It is a great offense, therefore, to consider Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to be an ordinary man. Those who do so are certainly deluded because they cannot understand the eternal form of Krishna. The Brahad Vishnu Smriti clearly states, Yo veti bahutikam deham krishnasya paramatmanah sa sarvasmad karyah srauta smarta vidyanatah mukham tasya valokyapi sa chelam snanam acharet. One who considers the body of Krishna to be material should be driven out from all rituals and activities of the Sruti and the Smriti. And if one by chance sees his face, one should at once take bath in the Ganges to rid himself of infection. People jeer at Krishna because they are envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Their destiny is certainly to take birth after birth in the species of atheistic and demoniac life. Perpetually, their real knowledge will remain under delusion, and gradually they will regress to the darkest region of creation.
Okay, so here when they say it's a great offense to consider Krishna the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be an ordinary man, it does means by extension any of the avatars. Lord Ram is a whole body of belief now that is trying to prove that Lord Ram was not really God. He was a human being and just an exemplary king. You see this kind of thinking coming particularly out of the academic world. You know, they study that period in history, and they will read some version of the Ramayana, but without any faith or without any kind of surrender or any genuine curiosity to know God. So they are going to paint him out to be an ordinary human being. So it's not just Krishna, even Lord Ram, Narsimha, you cannot consider an ordinary human being because the form
I
itself is
think
so
I
extraordinary.
I think somewhere in the Bhagavad Gita or some, I'm not sure where it was, but somewhere I think Prabhupada had said something about, I think it was in his book that I in this book, that autobiography, not auto that biography that was written by that Swami. So it mentions in that somewhere that Prabhupada said that initially when he was teaching or preaching the ideas in US, like he was referencing that Gita that was written by Radhakrishnan, right?
Pali
So that
Radhakrishnan.
Gita, so he says something about that. I think it's that Gita where he says that the way that it's Krishna is described in that is like it's like the unreal manifested from Krishna is the unreal that's manifested from within. So then he's like, how is that even possible? Like, there's no way that
Exactly,
like that
yeah.
doesn't make sense in the sense that how is the unreal manifested within? Like, it doesn't make any sense. So
Exactly,
he's
yeah,
saying,
because what the point Srila Prabhupada is making is that the readers of such a Gita, as the Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan, actually, I started my Bhagavad Gita studies with that book. I didn't know
uh,
better. I just went and took the first book off a shelf in Delhi and bought it, and I was quite happy with it, not knowing much. But I went only got as far as the second chapter. I read the first chapter and by hearted it. I listened to the second chapter. I read the second chapter and liked all the talk about the soul being eternal, but never got beyond that. And then came back to India, and then 10 years passed, and then came to this Bhagavad Gita as it is. So, why that is being attacked is because then it just confuses the reader. The reader is looking for some personal form of the Lord to suggest, to surrender to, or to get to know. And the writer, in this case, Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan, is confusing it and saying there is some unborn within
uh,
Krishna that you have to surrender. How are we going to find this unborn within? How is this possible? So we just get baffled, and the reader will say, "Oh, forget it. I'm not interested." Same time, in the early stages of the ISKCON movement, especially starting the real challenge of starting temples and programs abroad and what, even finding deities and installing them, he was working with people who didn't know anything. Some of them had been to India and smoked ganja and floated around in Nepal and done some yoga and basically done drugs, Rishikesh, etc. Picked up some poster paintings of so-called gods, and but Srila Prabhupada had to start somewhere. So Srila Prabhupada tried to describe the forms of the Lord. Firstly, no prints and paintings were available. Just think of that situation. It's not like today you can go online and order and it will be delivered by courier. What to talk of images on a mobile phone? Or so somebody brought, he said, I have a photo of a cat. It's a divine cat. Okay, so Prabhupada was very curious. Actually, it was a poster painting of Hanuman. They
uh,
couldn't tell what it was, but they must have felt some attraction, so they got that poster painting and kept it with them. Srila Prabhupada kept that as one of the personalities to figure eventually in a Ramachandra, full enthronement or crowning photo. But they were still stuck with how to go about with Krishna. Then he said, we will plan a trip back to India and some of you will come with me and we'll pick up a lot of stuff there in Vrindavan. Now, meanwhile, Srila Prabhupada, for him, it was always an emergency situation and he wanted to start a Ratha Yatra, to bring Jagannath out into the public. And lo and behold, Malati, that is her Diksha name, she's an elderly lady now. She's even a member of the GBC, the Governing Body Commission, a thin lady with glasses, uh, powerful preacher and so on. So she was a young lady those days, and she and her husband, because they were so fired up with everything that Prabhupada used to talk about Jagannath in Puri and how he had round eyes and how his hands would stick out. And so happened that she went to some Indian store where in a kind of jumbled up assortment of curios and toys lying in a big tub, she picked up something that looked like Jagannath and she brought it back to Prabhupada. And Prabhupada was elated that Krishna had actually come to him. And he told her, go back. There must be two more looking like this. It's part of a set. Go back and find this Jagannath has a brother called Balaram and a sister with no arms. That is Subhadra. They all have these strange looking eyes, like tribal art or something, totem tribal African art. So this lady and then some another disciple with her, a young devotee, went back and bought those three. And starting with those three, he had to commission the husband of Malati or one of those to carve from big blocks of wood, fairly large, at least 3 feet high, Jagannath, Baladev and Subhadra. But because the form didn't have the normal physical proportions and beauty you expect, it was fairly easily done. The question is how to start with wood, where to find the wood, big chunks of wood, and how to explain to who you're buying it, why you're buying it. They didn't have money even to go and buy wood and say it is to build a house or to build two beams inside the house. So they literally went to some wharf or harbor where big bits of wood would be floating and lifted and dried it and kept it ready for Srila Prabhupada's approval. Now, if you think what a shocking contrast in how offensive it might be considered by the Puri's Panda sitting in Jagannath Puri, where
Oh,
according
they
to the
wouldn't.
ritual,
They wouldn't like it. They would be like.
they
They would
wouldn't
be
like
very. They wouldn't like it
it.
at all. Yeah.
Yeah, it is what they call heresy or heretical to even think that you can carve the Lord, Supreme Lord, out of something floating down a river. It's heretical. There, whenever they change the deities, which is once in so many years, there is an elaborate process by which they have to find a particular Daru Brahman tree which has life inside, and then they do rituals, and then it's carved and painted, and it's a whole elaborate thing. But to get the movement going and to really bring people to this worship, see the kind of shocking, if you like, or shockingly radical, extraordinary steps Prabhupada took. And to make things even worse, Prabhupada couldn't push too much. So he gave them first the Jagannath, and I think it was Shyam Sundar. That's right. A person called a devotee, a disciple called Shyam Sundar who was carving, was doing the carving, and he had some shed or something. Srila Prabhupada said, "Okay, tell me when you've got something of the shape, and then I'll come and see." So he said, "Yeah, I'm trying to do it. Prabhupada, you can come in it." And when he went there, Prabhupada saw Shyam Sundar was smoking cigarettes and had kept that
Yeah.
cigarette packet on the body
The,
of that.
on
Yeah,
the yeah, this is there in the biography actually that I was reading. So like while he's I think Prabhupada asks him to like paint and then so he comes in after some time back and then he sees like he sees him smoking and then that cigarette butts are on top of the painting. It's kept there and so then um I think Prabhupada allows him to like you can smoke but then what you do is like you have to wash your hands after
and
yeah.
not keep the cigarette packet on
Not
the
not
body of the dog.
on
I
the
think
body of the
that's it.
Lord. Yeah, yeah.
But
That's very actually. That's like if you compare him to like a lot of other Swami, he's kind of
Buddhist,
like open-minded in that sense. At least he's not.
extremely open-minded because he saw the circumstances and he knew this is the only way to get the movement going. So with such a Jagannath Baladev, they had a beautiful Rath Yatra. The first one I think was in San Francisco, if I'm not mistaken. It was in San Francisco. Yeah, and he that was a great success because these young people brought out all their talent. They went and bought material to make canopies, and they had three little open carts, plain carts, with two wheels. And how did they pull the carts? They obviously didn't have pull-ups or anything. I think they just literally pulled. That's right, the three carts were pulled. Or they had some motor vehicle which someone drove, and then the cars came behind. It's a huge success. And even to offer prasadam to the public, some sweets, sweetmeats, fruits, they went begging to all the malls there. But the young people taking this effort touched the hearts of a lot of the merchants. They didn't care what this Hinduism was about. They just liked the spontaneous mood,
Sure.
and they just gave milk powder, sugar to roll and make sweets, fruits, toffees, anything, which was then just distributed, provided it didn't have non-veg in it. It was just distributed. So it's marvelous because Srila Prabhupada was dealing with people who didn't know the difference between Hanuman and a cat. They didn't know that you can't
Yeah,
put cigarettes on the, they didn't know that you can't just take a log coming down the wharf, some dirty river water, and make the Supreme Court. But there was no offense in all that because the intention was so pure, and because he was guiding a pure devotee like Srila Prabhupada was guiding their endeavor and their efforts. There wasn't any. They didn't. It didn't as if they were doing any offense according to the verses that we are studying now. They were not in that category at all, and they got away with everything, and they went on to become very serious devotees and disciples of Srila Prabhupada, doing lots of service for many, many years. So mind you, once he got that going, he started introducing standards. And I remember one lady who taught me, she's a senior disciple of Srila Prabhupada. She told us, there were just a small temple of young boys and girls living in little rooms, and they had some small, these Jagannath deities. And what they would do is, they would bathe the deities in a big tub once. They never bathed the deities because they themselves rarely bathed, only once a week. Firstly, you had to put coins in to get hot water, it was freezing cold, and where they lived didn't necessarily have a bath there, so they would go to some public place. So basically it was just once a week a bath that was affordable. Now, the Srila Prabhupada wrote a letter and said, "It's very nice. I hear you're worshipping Jagannath or Gaurnita. You've got them and you're looking after, but remember you have to give them a bath." So they automatically presume that, like their weekly bath, it must be only a once a week bath. So they would get together in the office room on the table in a big bowl and immerse these deities in and bathe them and freshen them up. Then came the regular standards that Jagannath is not really for bathing, made of wood, and daily bathing is not what's required, but daily change of dress, alankar, offering incense, like this, like
it's
this.
the words. The words actually may be miscommunicated by the devotees there. So that's why they must have not realized that they have to like do decorate. In one sense, decorate the deities and change the this thing. You don't actually have to like give it like a bath. Like I think like you have to put milk over its this thing, or offer milk and then that kind of stuff. I think, right? I think that's what you do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there are like hilarious stories. One time Srila Prabhupada went to Australia, because,
Hmm.
New Zealand or Australia, because they said, "We are ready to open a temple, we have the deities." And when he went there, he found nothing was ready. They had no plan. I think they had some sort of deity in place. Anyway, Srila Prabhupada said, "Okay, get ready. Tomorrow uh, we're going to do a fruit they're going to do a fruit offering. That's right. Offering for in the yagya, that we are going to have a havan or yagya or whatever. And he went there and he said, "Bring fruit for." But they didn't know. They made a nice fruit salad and brought it, because
Oh,
actually he wanted bananas to throw, like in the havan or yagya. And even better still, amongst the people who were coming were real junkies, druggies, hippies. But they'd taken to chanting. And one such guy, unbathed, was sitting somewhere next to Prabhupada, chanting with his beads. And Prabhupada was getting furious at the utter hopeless arrangements. And he said, "I've just come here to waste my time." And he was really like freaking out on this. So this young hippie type with his jabba beads, not knowing even who Prabhupada is, told him, "It's okay, old man, don't get angry, just chant Hare Krishna and you'll be happy." So, so the
that
guy,
must have been like, what is happening to me
oh
now?
yeah, but
That's
Srila
so.
Prabhupada was so thunderstruck. They say his eyes kind of popped out of his head, and he saw the man is innocent. He doesn't even know who Srila Prabhupada is, so he's the founder of the movement. And Srila Prabhupada suddenly looked at him and said, "You have given me very good advice." And he took out his face.
Yeah,
So
it's
they were,
that's
I
really
mean,
embarrassing though. It's like it's
for the
really
other,
embarrassing. Yeah.
absolutely. For the others, it was like they didn't know where to look. That this hippie type, he is taken to chanting, but he doesn't know what he's saying and to whom he's saying, and
Yeah.
then the guru just takes it in the right spirit. So those early disciples had some very nice encounters with Srila Prabhupada. There were no rules blocking them, seniority, juniority. They could barge into his room anytime. They could go and cry and say their parents had thrown them out because they had joined the Hare Krishna. Grown men, 28-year-old men passed out to university, go and cry to him and say, I just spoke to my mother. She said they're cutting me out of all the family will and property because I've told them I've joined the Hare Krishna. And he would say, don't worry, don't worry. I am your father and mother from now on. So it's like amazingly sweet and close pastimes between them occurred. Once they came back to India, he started putting some rules in place, how they should approach the Guru and what can be done and what can't be done. And he started firing and started tightening up because he also had to set up some system in place. Okay, now to go to verse 13, the next verse.
Okay, so it's Mahatmanastu Mam Partha Devim Prakriti Mashritaha
Yeah.
Bhajantyan Naya Manaso Gyatva Bhutadi Mavayayam.
No,
And so
it
that
is,
is,
yeah, it's chanted in a simple tune like this.
oh,
Mahatmanastu mam partha daivim prakritimashritah bhajanti ananyo manaso gyatva bhutadimayam avyayam.
okay.
Okay, so the translation, yeah, okay, go on, read the
So the
translation.
transition is, O son of Partha, those who are not deluded, the great souls are under the protection of the divine nature. They
Sorry,
are full.
just give me a minute.
And so there was a Supriya Chechi had a call in between, so that's why I had to stop the recording. So we're back now. So what I actually forgot what we were discussing. What we were,
No, we were discussing the translation. We were just reading the
yeah,
translation
that's
when
the
he,
translation, correct. Yeah. So
yeah.
Asanapatha, those who are not deluded, the great souls are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. In
Okay,
this,
so now he's talking about the positive side of this. That is not the people who, excuse me, I'll just keep this open.
yeah, yeah, sure.
Not the people who are who deride him because he comes in the human form and who are defeated, and no matter what they try. But he's now talking of people, those who are not deluded, who don't take him to be a human form. These great souls are under the protection of the divine nature. They're fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And just for the mere fact that they don't offend him by deriding him and see him as divine and transcendental, although he comes in the human form, they have a very good destination. He's giving this assurance personally. Okay. Yeah. Now, if you want to read the purport, yeah, just start reading the purport, please.
Okay, so in this verse, the description of the Mahatma is clearly given. The first sign of the Mahatma is that he is already situated in the divine nature. He is not under the control of material nature. And how is this effected? That is explained in the seventh chapter. One who surrenders unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, at once becomes freed from the control of the material nature. That is the qualification. One
Mhm.
can become free from the control of material nature as soon as he surrenders his soul to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the preliminary formula. Being marginal potency, as soon as the living entity is freed from the control of material nature, he is put under the guidance of the spiritual nature. The guidance of the spiritual nature is called Daivi Prakriti, divine nature. So, when one is promoted in that way by surrendering to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one attains to the stage of great soul Mahatma. The Mahatma does not divert his attention to anything outside Krishna because he knows perfectly well that Krishna is the original Supreme Person, the cause of all causes. There is no doubt about it. Such a Mahatma or a great soul develops through pure
Association.
devotee.
Yeah.
And pure devotees are not even attracted by Krishna's other features, such as the four-armed Mahavishnu. They are simply attracted by the two-armed form of Krishna. They are not attracted to the other features of Krishna, nor are they concerned with any form of a demigod or of a human being. They meditate only upon Krishna in Krishna consciousness. They are always engaged in the unswerving service of the Lord in Krishna consciousness.
Okay, two things here. One is, of course, we are told that once they surrender, then they are put under the guidance of the spiritual nature. If you remember, it was in Canto 1 of the Bhagavatam, where who is it who gets vision? Is it child Narada Muni in his previous birth as a child when he actually sees
Uh,
this, or is it Vyasadev?
Vyasadev,
Vyasadev. Isn't it Vyasadev who
no,
gets
I think
with
it's
Narada? No.
no, I think it's Narada only. I think it's Narada only. But Vyasadev, I mean, from what I know, like he comes up with the Bhagavatam because when Narada comes and tells him that he needs to go and write the Bhagavatam. But I don't know. I think what he said is right. I think Narada is the one who is able to look back to his past and is able
But
to see
the,
that.
yeah, the point is that when he gets vision of the Supreme Lord in his forearm form, he sees uh, the material energy, Devi Prakritim, or the material energy or Maya Devi standing with folded hands behind the Lord or to the side of the Lord, meaning she will do his bidding. So if he orders her to release a particular jiva from her clutches, then she will release him or her and direct them more towards the spiritual energy. And that's how Krishna claims his devotees and draws them closer. That's what's being said in the first big para of this purport. In the second para, there are a couple of things here. That is, basically, pure devotee of the Lord is not attracted to the forearm form because it's a little overpowering and awe-inspiring. That is a mood that interferes with the sweetness of pure bhakti. They prefer something simpler like the two-armed form. Nor are such pure devotees attracted to any of the demigods. Nor are they attracted to a human being, putting a human being on a pedestal and going on worshipping them and singing their glories. You see, a pure devotee does not fall into any of these categories because he is genuinely attracted only to the two-armed form of the Lord. That's what is being said here. Now, I think we might have to stop here. One is at 6 o'clock. The other thing is
Yeah.
I had to go to receive a courier and make a payment. So
Yeah,
there's
we
going
can stop the recording. Yeah, I'll just stop the recording. Yeah.
to